The abandoned house. It was supposed to be a harmless adventure, just a fun night with friends. No one believed the stories about the abandoned house at the edge of town, and even if they did, what was the worst that could happen? A few creaky floorboards, some bats in the attic. Nothing they couldn't handle. Ethan, Mark, Lisa and Sarah stood before the house, its towering frame silhouetted against the dark sky. The house had been empty for decades, yet it seemed oddly well preserved, too well preserved. Ivy crawled up the walls, its windows dark and lifeless. A chilling wind howled through the trees, making Sarah shiver. "Are we really doing this?" she asked, hugging herself. "Don't tell me you're scared," Mark teased, nudging her. Lisa smirked. "Come on, it's just an old house. Let's go." Ethan pushed open the heavy front door, which groaned in protest. A rush of cold air greeted them, carrying the scent of dust and decay. The foyer was vast, with a grand staircase leading into darkness. Cobwebs draped over chandeliers and faded portraits lined the walls, their subjects staring with hollow eyes. They stepped inside, their footsteps echoing. "Okay, let's split up and explore," Ethan suggested. "We meet back here in 10 minutes. "Terrible idea," Sarah muttered, but the others had already begun moving. The strange occurrences begin. Mark wandered into what seemed to be a study, his flashlight flickering. He ran his fingers over a dusty desk when something caught his eye. A book lying open, its pages filled with strange symbols. As he touched it, the candle beside him flared to life. Mark jumped back, his heart racing. Meanwhile, Lisa found herself in a long corridor with old family portraits. One painting stood out, a woman with piercing eyes and an unsettling smile. As she stepped closer, a whisper tickled her ear. "You shouldn't be here." Lisa spun around, but no one was there. Sarah and Ethan stuck together, moving through a parlor filled with antique furniture. A sudden crash made them jump. A mirror had shattered, but there was no sign of what had broken it. "Let's go back," Sarah urged, but as they turned, the doorway was gone. A solid wall now stood where the exit had been. The house comes alive. A scream echoed through the house. Mark and Lisa came running back into the foyer, eyes wide with terror. "We need to get out," Lisa gasped. "Something is in here with us." "Where's the door?" Mark demanded. "It was just here," Ethan said, running his hands over the cold wall. The house had sealed them inside. The air grew heavy, oppressive. Footsteps echoed from the stairs, slow and deliberate. A shadow moved at the top, a figure watching them. "We need to hide," Sarah whispered. They ran into the nearest room and slammed the door. The walls shook as if something enormous was outside. Then silence. The whispering voices. "Something isn't right," Ethan whispered. "This house, it's playing with us." Mark's flashlight flickered again, then went out. The room plunged into darkness. A whisper filled the air, soft at first, then growing louder, overlapping voices hissing in an ancient tongue. Sarah covered her ears, but the voices only grew stronger. Lisa gasped, "The book! Mark, where is it?" Mark fumbled in his jacket, pulling out the strange book he had found. The symbols glowed faintly. "Read something from it," Ethan urged. Mark hesitated, but then whispered the first line he could make out. The voices screeched in response, and the temperature dropped further. "The spirits awaken." The walls trembled. A gust of wind tore through the room, blowing the book from Mark's hands. The pages flipped wildly before stopping. A new voice spoke, not a whisper, but a guttural, ancient growl. "You were warned." The door burst open. The figure from the stairs now stood in the doorway, its face obscured by shadows. Lisa screamed as the lights flickered, revealing glimpses of the entity. Torn clothing, hollow eyes, an unnatural grin. Ethan grabbed the book, flipping through the pages. There must be a way to stop this. Sarah pointed at an illustration of a burning symbol. "We need to draw this." Using a piece of broken wood, they carved the symbol onto the floor. The house shook violently as the shadow creature lunged at them. Mark shouted the final words from the book, and a deafening scream filled the house. The walls cracked, the shadows twisted, and suddenly, the silence returned. The door reappeared. The escape without hesitation, they ran. The moment they stepped outside, the house groaned as if alive, then settled into eerie stillness. They turned back. The house looked as it always had, silent, abandoned, untouched. "We are never speaking of this again," Lisa panted. Ethan nodded, clutching the book. "Agreed." But as they walked away, a whisper followed them. "You'll be back."